at some point in the next year or two, you become the longest-serving commissioner in professional sports in North America.
We were, before we went on the air, we were discussing how old we were getting. Thank you for that.
What would surprise Canadians about you?
Well, actually,
hockey fans, you know, and you're the first to admit it, they love to give you a hard time.
There is a portrait that has been painted, but it happens with politicians, it happens with sports commissioners in other sports. They would be surprised that I tend to be very family focused and family oriented. The people that know me and spend time with me get amused by the image that sometimes is portrayed. Now, I don't want to be viewed as a victim because I don't view myself as one. It just comes with the turf. It's part of what you deal with.
What are you first and foremost? Are you a hockey fan, or are you a person who's focused, because you have to be, on the business of hockey?
Well, it's really, you got to do both. I couldn't do what I do day in, day out, night in, night out, if I didn't love the game. I think when it comes to...
But you became a lover of the game, right?
Well,
I mean, were you a lover of the game when you first took the job?
Yes, yes. I know that's part of the mystique that was portrayed. When I grew up in New York City, it was one of the places where you had a choice of sports and teams to follow. And I used to go to the old Madison Square Garden with these GO cards they gave you if you went to the public schools in New York, and you could go sit in the worst seats for 50 cents. And I'd bring a bag of dinner with a sandwich, I'd do my homework, and I'd watch the game. So yeah, I was always a fan of the game, and I wouldn't have taken this job if I wasn't a fan of the game. Having been in the game as long as I have, and really having gotten to know the people that are in the game, particularly players, former players who are managers and coaches, we have a very special group of people. This is a very special culture that we have, and I think it's part of the strength of the game.
I want to show you something, and I'm not trying to trick you here.
Uh-oh.
No, it's not.
I have to put on my glasses?
No. Maybe. Well, I will too, because I'll never figure out how to use this if I don't.
That is an iPad.
That's very good. I just want you to look at it. I want to talk about what we're actually seeing here.
Nobody's going to get more penalty minutes than anyone else. Here we go.
Scott went after Kessel, and Kessel is given.
I've seen that before.
No kidding. I bet you've seen it a few times.
Yep.
What do you think it says about the game?
Well, we tend to see a little more of this in the preseason than we do in the regular season. When you look at events like that, they tend to be far less frequent than they were 20, 30 years ago. We have a lot of rules that deal with these types of situations. It tells you it's an emotional game. In the preseason, players are fighting for jobs, and there's an intensity, and the discipline of the regular season hasn't kicked in. You have a game that's very physical, very fast, very emotional, very edgy, and it's played in a confined space. Every now and then there needs to be an outlet to keep the temperature from worse things happening, and I think by and large the players understand their responsibilities, the coaches understand their responsibilities, and the officials do a good job of regulating the game.
So fighting is something then that you see as part of the game.
It has been.
A necessary part of the
game. It has
at
been,
times.
it is, but it's been declining in its frequency. There's less fighting in the game than we had years ago. I mean, we penalize it. It's part of the fabric, and it evolves, and the game constantly evolves. And when you're making changes, because we respect the history, the tradition, and the vibrancy of the game, you just don't throw a light switch and effectuate a major change. You try and let the game evolve within certain parameters. There's a balancing act, and we constantly are wrestling with that balance.
But are we evolving to a point where there would be no fighting in hockey?
The game will evolve to that point on its own or not, but nobody, and I know there's a lot of urban legend about this, I haven't done anything to legislate it out of the game, although interestingly enough, it was either 3 or 4 years ago, we recommended not having fights on the dropping of the puck, okay? Because those tend to be a little more staged than the emotion of the moment, and it was the players who resisted doing that.
and you couldn't push it any further.
Players believe it's a term and condition of their employment and that they have a right to sign off on those things. We try to work very well with the players and the Players Association because we understand that they're an essential part of what goes on. They are the part of what goes on the ice, and we try to work with them to make sure we're setting the right tone.
There were two things about that I found interesting. After it was over, when they went to the players, they went to the coaches, and not just those who'd been involved in the game, but other teams as well. And there was a kind of common term that kept coming up as, well, you know, it was okay. It was like old-time hockey. It was like what used to be played here.
No damage done. Nobody gets hurt, takes down the temperature, so nobody on the next shift is getting speared or hit with a stick. These types of things have been a thermostat at points. And before you make a fundamental change and say, okay, we're changing the rule on fighting, you know, you fight, you're gone for 2 weeks, you have to be very careful. It needs to evolve because for every action, there's probably an unintended consequence that you weren't aware of.
The other thing that happened that night was pretty well everybody in the stands was up on their feet cheering.
Yeah.
You know, I assume there were some who weren't, but the overwhelming majority seemed to be. So what does that say about what fans want?
It's an emotional, passionate game. It keeps you on the edge of your seat. It's what's special about our game. We don't go out of our way to market or promote that. It is what it is. It happens when it happens. While some people would prefer not to see it in the game, other people enjoy seeing it.
Does it help sell the game? I mean,
No,
part of your 20 years
some,
or so has been trying to move the game into new markets. So does that help or hurt?
For some people it helps, and for some people it hurts. And you know, there's no absolutes in this business. The fact of the matter is, some people, particularly who are less familiar with the game, may get excited by that, and there are other people who are seeing their first game, and I've heard this from people saying, that was my first game, it was wonderful, but why did they do that in the second period? And so it depends on the individual.
And what do you say?
I say it's all part of the game, and as long as you enjoyed the overall experience, come on back.
A lot of fans in Hamilton, Markham, Ontario, Quebec City,
Yeah.
other places who'd love to see an NHL team.
We have 30 teams. It's a limited amount of space, and if we started expanding tomorrow, people would say, we've diluted the product.
So a second team in the Toronto area or in Quebec City, nobody should start.
Well, I wouldn't, you know, first of all, we're not planning on expanding. Secondly,
Which only leaves the opportunity for a team that's in trouble to move. And at the moment,
we have no trouble teams. You know, it's interesting because a lot of this speculation and rumor and commentary about troubled franchises was exaggerated. Some of it was wishful thinking by places that wanted, well, hopefully that franchise will fail and it will come here. You don't move unless you have to. And you don't move because you say, well, we're here, but this place may be better, so let's there. That's not the type of connection we want with our fans.